I didn't cry when my husband told me my inheritance wasn't our money. I didn't throw anything when he said we needed to keep finances completely separate from now on. I just looked at him across our kitchen table, the same table I'd refinished myself 7 years ago when we couldn't afford new furniture, and said, "You're absolutely right. Let's be fair about everything." He smiled. That patronizing smile I'd once thought was confidence but had learned was just arrogance wrapped in a nice suit. "I'm glad you understand, babe," he said, already reaching for his phone. "It's just smart financial planning. Your grandmother's money is yours. What I earn is mine. Clean and simple. Clean and simple." Those words would haunt him. It had been 3 weeks since Grandma Rose passed. 3 weeks since the lawyer read her will and I learned she'd left me $600,000, her entire life savings, accumulated through decades of careful investments and living modestly in the same small house in Ohio. I'd cried then. Not because of the money, but because I'd lost the woman who raised me after my parents died when I was 8. The woman who taught me that kindness wasn't weakness and that keeping records wasn't just good practice, it was survival. My husband, Trevor, hadn't cried at the funeral. He'd checked his phone during the service, twice. But he'd been very interested in my inheritance. The first week he was supportive. "Take your time grieving, sweetheart. We'll figure out the money stuff later." The second week, he was helpful. "I can recommend a financial advisor. Someone who knows how to handle this kind of windfall properly." The third week, he was territorial. "I've been thinking," he'd said last Tuesday, "and I really think you should keep that money separate. In your name only. It wouldn't be fair to commingle it with our marital assets." I'd been loading the dishwasher, a chore I did every night after cooking dinner, another chore I did every night. I'd paused, a plate in my hand, and said, "Why wouldn't it be fair?" "Well, you didn't earn it. It's an inheritance. It's not like money we built together." The plate could have broken. Should have broken, from how hard I set it down. But I'd learned control over 14 years of marriage. "I see," I'd said. "So my inheritance isn't ours, but your salary is? That's different. I work for my money. This is just, it fell into your lap. Just fell." That's when he'd suggested we separate all our finances. Going forward, he'd clarified. "What's yours is yours. What's mine is mine. 50-50 on all expenses. It's only fair." And I'd agreed. He'd looked surprised. Maybe even disappointed that I hadn't fought him. He'd probably prepared arguments, rehearsed his reasoning. But I just nodded and said, "Okay, let's do it right." "Great," he'd said, that smile returning. "I'll set up a shared spreadsheet for household expenses." "Perfect," I'd replied. "I'll gather some documentation too, just to make sure we're being completely fair about everything." That was 5 days ago. Now I sat at that same kitchen table, my laptop open, surrounded by 14 years of bank statements, credit card bills, receipts I'd kept in labeled boxes in our basement, and a yellow legal pad covered in calculations. Grandma Rose had taught me to keep records. Every receipt, every transaction. She'd survived the Depression and a husband who'd tried to hide money from her. "Paper doesn't lie, sweetheart," she'd always said. "When someone shows you who they are, make sure you have proof." I'd thought it was paranoia. Turns out it was preparation. My best friend Rachel sat across from me, her own laptop open, her reading glasses perched on her nose. Rachel was a paralegal at a family law firm downtown. She'd taken one look at Trevor's separate finances proposal and said, "Oh honey, let me help you with this." "Okay," she said now, peering at her screen. "Let's start with the house down payment. You said you contributed how much?" $40,000. My entire savings from teaching before we got married. "And Trevor?" $10,000. But he always said it was our down payment equally. Rachel's eyebrow arched. "Noted. What about the mortgage payments?" I pulled up the spreadsheet I'd created. For the first 6 years, we split it evenly. Then I went part-time at school so I could be home when the kids got off the bus. Trevor said it made sense since his career was taking off. Translation: you took a pay cut for the family and he kept his entire salary. I paid what I could from my part-time income, plus I covered all groceries, kids' expenses, and household items. He paid the mortgage and utilities. Rachel was typing rapidly. "And you went part-time because his job required travel. Someone needed to be home with Emma and Jake. The aftercare program cost almost as much as I was making. So you sacrificed your career for his. I'd never thought of it that way. I guess so. Don't guess. Did you or didn't you turn down the department head position at your school? Yes. 8 years ago. It would have meant evening meetings and summer curriculum planning. How much more would you have made? I pulled up another document. Starting salary would have been $15,000 more annually. With raises, I'd probably be making $75,000 now instead of 48. Rachel's fingers flew across her keyboard. So conservatively, you've lost out on approximately $200,000 in income, not counting retirement contributions. Speaking of which, I cashed out my $401k when Trevor started his MBA program, $60,000. He needed it for tuition since his company only covered half. The typing stopped. Rachel looked at me over her glasses. Please tell me he paid you back. He said it was an investment in our future. Once he graduated and got promoted, we'd both benefit. Did you benefit? I thought about Trevor's new Tesla, his golf club membership, the weekend guys' trips to Vegas. Not proportionally, no. Honey, you know I love you, but we need to have a come-to-Jesus moment here. Your husband has been financially abusing you for over a decade. I'd started to argue, but she held up her hand. Listen to what you're telling me. You paid for his education. You sacrificed your career. You've been covering the kids and the household while he's been building wealth in his name only. And now that you have your own money, he wants to separate finances. That's not protection. That's theft prevention. The words hit like cold water. What do I do? I asked. Rachel smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile she wore when she'd found the perfect case law to demolish an opponent's argument. We give him exactly what he wants. Separate finances, completely fair, 50-50 on everything. I don't understand. You will. First, we need to call my boss. You need a lawyer. Not just any lawyer you need, Patricia Chen. She's the best divorce attorney in the state. I'm not getting divorced. Not yet. But you're going to need legal advice for what we're about to do. Trust me. 3 hours later, I'd had a consultation with Patricia Chen, a sharp woman in her 50s who'd listened to my story without interrupting, reviewed the documents Rachel had compiled, and said 3 words: dissipation of assets. Excuse me? Your husband has systematically depleted marital assets for his sole benefit. The MBA program. His car. His discretionary spending. Meanwhile, you've been subsidizing the household and childcare. In a divorce, we could argue he owes you reimbursement. But I'm not getting divorced. I know. You said that. But here's what you are going to do. You're going to accept his proposal for separate finances. And then you're going to invoice him. Invoice him? Patricia smiled. For services rendered. Childcare, housekeeping, cooking, financial management, social coordination, all at market rates, of course. For the past 14 years. My mouth fell open. It's all legal, she continued. If he wants to treat your marriage like a business arrangement, let's treat it like a business arrangement. I assume you've been handling his dry cleaning? Yes. Grocery shopping according to his preferences? Yes. Cooking his meals? Every night. Managing the children's schedules, medical appointments, school communications, all of it. Patricia's smile widened. Then you've been operating as an unpaid personal assistant, chef, housekeeper, and childcare provider. We're going to calculate what that would cost on the open market, and then we're going to send him a bill. Rachel squeezed my hand. But first, we're going to have some fun. The next morning, I woke up early and made my usual breakfast spread. Fresh coffee in his favorite mug, scrambled eggs with cheese, toast with the expensive jam he liked, and a fruit salad. Then I threw it all away. When Trevor came downstairs, he found me eating a bowl of cereal. "Where's breakfast?" he asked. I looked up from my phone. "Oh, did you want breakfast? That'll be $18. What? Well, we're doing separate finances now, right? 50-50 on everything. A restaurant breakfast costs about $18. If you want me to make it, that's the going rate. Cash or Venmo." His face did something complicated. "You're joking. You said we should keep things fair. A personal chef would charge even more, but I'm giving you the family discount. You're my wife, not a chef." "Exactly. I'm your wife. So maybe we should go back to sharing everything equally?" Including my inheritance? His jaw tightened. We agreed on separate finances. We did. So, breakfast? Yes or no? He grabbed his keys. I'll get something on the way to work. Perfect. That evening, I served dinner for the kids and myself. When Trevor got home at 7, he found us finishing up. What's for dinner? He asked. I made chicken stir-fry. But you didn't pre-order, so there aren't any leftovers. Pre-order? Yes. Going forward, if you want me to cook for you, I'll need 24 hours notice and payment in advance. A home-cooked meal with my skill level runs about $35. Emma, my 12-year-old, looked confused. Mom, what's happening? Your father and I are trying a new financial arrangement, honey. It's fine. Trevor's face was red. This is ridiculous. Is it? You wanted separate finances. I'm separating them. You're welcome to cook your own meals, of course. The groceries are in the fridge. Oh, but those are groceries I purchased, so you'll need to reimburse me for anything you use. I have an itemized list. He stared at me. I stared back. He ordered takeout. Over the next week, I continued the malicious compliance. His laundry sat in a basket with a note, wash and fold service. $45. The lawn didn't get mowed. I provided him with landscaper contact numbers and their rates. His mother called to arrange Sunday dinner. I told her I'd need payment for hosting or she could take her son out to a restaurant. That call was risky. Susan, my mother-in-law, had always been cool toward me. Not mean exactly, but distant. Like I wasn't quite good enough for her son. I'd expected her to be furious. Instead, she'd gone quiet. Then she'd said, I see. I'll talk to Trevor. The house became a war zone of itemized services. I'd zoned off the living room, my cleaning, my furniture arrangement, my Netflix account. Trevor could access it for a daily rental fee. The good towels were mine. He could use the threadbare ones from college or buy his own. I'd even calculated the utilities based on square footage of personal space. The cold shower incident happened on day 9. I'd paid exactly 50% of the water heater gas bill. But I'd also calculated that my showers used less hot water than his. So I adjusted the tank temperature to accommodate only my needs. His howl from the bathroom was incredibly satisfying. Are you kidding me? He roared. Appearing in a towel, dripping and furious. What's wrong? The water is freezing. Oh, is it? Well, I paid for 50% of the gas bill, which provides enough hot water for one full shower per day. I took mine this morning. If you want hot water too, you'll need to cover the additional gas cost. I can send you the calculation. This is insane. This is fair. This is what you wanted. Emma was watching from her doorway, her expression caught between horror and fascination. Jake, my 9-year-old, looked scared. I softened immediately. Kids, go to your rooms for a minute, okay? Once they'd left, Trevor stepped closer, lowering his voice. What the hell are you doing? I'm doing exactly what you ask. Separate finances, 50-50. Fair. This isn't what I meant. Then what did you mean, Trevor? Because from where I'm standing, you meant that you wanted to protect your money while still enjoying all the benefits of having a wife who manages your entire life. That's not. When you said separate finances, did you think I'd still cook and clean and do your laundry and manage the kids and organize your life? For free. His silence was answer enough. Here's the thing, I continued, my voice calm. I've been doing all of that for 14 years while also working and raising our children, and I did it happily because I thought we were partners. But you've made it clear we're not partners. We're roommates with a business arrangement. So let's treat it like one. You're being petty. I'm being fair. There's a difference. He opened his mouth, closed it, then grabbed his phone and left the room. I heard him making a call probably to his lawyer friend, Mark. Good. I'd been expecting that. What I hadn't been expecting was the call from Susan the next day. Can we have coffee? My mother-in-law asked. Just the two of us? I met her at a cafe downtown, wary. Susan had never asked me to coffee before. Not in 14 years. She was already seated when I arrived, 2 cups on the table. She'd ordered my usual, oat milk latte with an extra shot. Thank you for coming, she said as I sat. Of course. She studied me for a moment, then said, Trevor called me. He's upset. I know. He says you're being unreasonable about this finance situation. I braced myself for the lecture. Instead, Susan said, He's wrong. I blinked. I'm sorry? My son is wrong. And he's being a fool. She took a sip of her coffee. I need to tell you something I've never told anyone. When Trevor's father and I divorced, he tried to do the same thing. The separate finances, among other things. Robert made good money. I stayed home with Trevor and his sister. When Robert decided he wanted out, he tried to claim that everything was his because he'd earned it. Never mind that I'd raised the children, managed the household, supported his career. What happened? I got a lawyer. A good one. She taught me about equitable distribution and the value of unpaid labor. Robert ended up paying much more than he would have if he'd just been fair from the start. Susan reached into her purse and pulled out a business card. Patricia Chen's business card. You already called her, I said. I did. Last week, after Trevor told me about his separate finance plan, I wanted to make sure you had good legal advice. I stared at this woman who'd been cold to me for over a decade. Why? Her eyes met mine, and for the first time, I saw sadness there. Because I was wrong about you. For years, I thought you weren't ambitious enough, weren't successful enough for my son. I didn't understand that you'd sacrificed your ambition for his. Just like I did for Robert. She reached across the table and took my hand. You're a good mother. A good wife. And Trevor is too much like his father to see what he has. She squeezed my fingers. But unlike me, you have documentation. You have options. And you have my support. I felt tears prick my eyes. Susan. Call me Mom. I should have asked you 2 years ago. We sat there, two women separated by a generation but connected by the same experience, and something in me shifted. I wasn't alone. That afternoon, I finalized the document I'd been working on for 2 weeks. Patricia had helped me refine it. Rachel had checked the math 3 times, and now it was ready. An invoice. For services rendered over 14 years of marriage. Childcare. $156,000 calculated at $15 hour for 50 hours per week for 12 years Emma's age. Housekeeping. $109,200. $150 week for deep cleaning services. Cooking. $163,800. $75 per dinner. 5 nights per week, 14 years. Personal assistant services. $98,000 managing. Schedules, appointments, social obligations. Financial management. $42,000. Bill paying, budget management. Lawn care subsidy. $8. $400. I'd mowed the lawn weekly for 6 years before we hired a Circus. Investment in his education. $60,000. My $401k for his MBA. Lost income from career sacrifice. $200,000. Conservative estimate. Total. 837. 400. Less. My calculated personal expenses over the same period. $198,000. Amount owed. $639,400. I'd been fair. More than fair. I'd only charged for time beyond my regular teaching job. I'd used actual market rates, not inflated ones. I'd accounted for my own expenses. And the number was still staggering. I printed 2 copies. One for Trevor. One for my records. That evening, I waited until after dinner he'd ordered from a restaurant and eaten alone in the living room he was now renting from me for $50 a day. I have something for you, I said, placing the envelope on the coffee table. He looked up from his phone. What's this? An invoice. You wanted separate finances and fair accounting. This is 14 years of services rendered, calculated at market rates. His hand froze halfway to the envelope. You're joking. I never joke about money. You taught me that. He opened the envelope. I watched his face as he read. Watched the color drain, then return in a flood of red. $600,000? Are you insane? I'm being fair. That's what everything would have cost if you'd hired people to do what I did for free. You're my wife. This is a business arrangement. Your words. If marriage is just 50-50 expense sharing, then I'm billing for my half of the work. He stood up, pacing. No judge would uphold this. Actually, several have. Patricia gave me case precedents. Dissipation of marital assets. Equitable distribution. The courts recognize the value of unpaid domestic labor. His face went white again. Patricia? The divorce lawyer? I'm not divorcing you. Not yet. But I am protecting myself. And I am collecting what I'm owed. We don't have $600,000. No, but I do. From Grandma Rose. Funny how that works out, isn't it? The math had been elegant. He wanted to keep my inheritance separate. Fine. It was separate. But he now owed me more than the inheritance was worth. This is blackmail, he said. This is accounting. You're the one who wanted everything itemized and fair. He grabbed his phone. I knew who he was calling. Mark? Yeah, I need you to look at something. My wife has lost her mind. I let him make the call. Let him pace and gesture and explain. I even made myself a cup of tea, the expensive Earl Grey I'd recently purchased just for me, and sat down to wait. 20 minutes later, Trevor ended the call. His face was ashen. Well? I asked. Mark says. He says you have a legitimate claim for equitable distribution if we divorced. He says a judge might. He couldn't finish the sentence. Might award me a significant portion of marital assets based on my unpaid contributions. Yes. Patricia said the same thing. He sank onto the couch. What do you want? I want you to understand what you've been taking for granted. I want you to see that partnership isn't just splitting a check at a restaurant. It's supporting each other. It's sacrifice. It's recognizing that my time and work have value even when there's no paycheck attached. I never meant to make you feel, didn't you? When you decided my inheritance wasn't ours but your salary was. When you bought a $60,000 car while I drove a 10-year-old sedan. When you went to Vegas with your buddies while I stayed home with sick kids. He was quiet. I loved you, I said. I still love you, somehow. But I won't let you treat me like hired help while claiming the privileges of a husband. What do you want me to do? I pulled out a second document. I want you to agree to marriage counseling. Real counseling, not just a few sessions to placate me. I want our finances to be truly joint, full transparency, equal decision-making. I want you to acknowledge in writing that my inheritance is marital property, just like your salary. And I want you to reimburse me for my $401k that went to your MBA. And the invoice? Consider it forgiven. If you agree to these terms and actually follow through. If you can become a real partner. He looked at the document. Back at the invoice. At me. And if I don't, then I file for divorce, and we let a judge decide how to value my contributions. Spoiler alert, it won't go well for you. His hand trembled as he took the pen I offered. 3 months later, we were in our third session with Dr. Morrison, a therapist who specialized in financial issues in marriage. Trevor had signed the agreement. He'd written me a check for $60,000, the 401k money. He'd added me to all his accounts, but more than that, he'd started doing the dishes. Helping with homework. Actually asking about my day. It wasn't perfect. Some days I still wanted to throw something at his head. But other days, I saw glimpses of the man I'd married, the one who'd gotten buried under entitlement and assumptions. Susan called weekly now. How's my daughter doing? She'd ask. She'd started inviting just me to lunch, sharing stories about her own marriage, offering advice. Emma had asked me one night, while I was tucking her in, "Are you and Dad going to be okay?" "I don't know, sweetheart," I'd answered honestly. "But I'm going to be okay either way. And so will you, and Jake. I like that you're not making Dad's breakfast anymore unless he asks nicely," she'd said with a small smile. "Oh really?" "Yeah." It made me think about how people should treat each other. Like, with respect. That conversation was worth more than any dollar amount on an invoice. The inheritance sat in an account in my name and Trevor's, jointly held. I'd kept my promise. But I'd also kept the documentation, the invoice, the evidence. Just in case. Because Grandma Rose had taught me well. Paper doesn't lie. And neither should partnerships. A week later, I was sitting at the kitchen table, the same table where this had all started, when Trevor came in from work. He was carrying flowers. "What's this?" I asked. "An apology. A thank you." I don't know. I've been an idiot. I won't argue with that." He sat down across from me. "I talked to my dad today. This was new." Trevor barely spoke to Robert. He heard about what happened. From Mom, I guess. He called to tell me I was making the same mistakes he did. And he was right. I was so focused on protecting my money that I couldn't see I was destroying our marriage. I was treating you like you were trying to take something from me, when really, you'd been giving me everything. I didn't say anything. Just waited. The invoice you made? I showed it to my team at work. Asked them if the numbers seemed fair. Trevor, they said you undercharged. Said if anything you should have billed me more. He laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. My assistant pointed out that her hourly rate is $45 and she doesn't cook my meals or raise my kids or give up her career for me. What are you saying? I'm saying I'm sorry. Really sorry, and I'm saying that I want to make this work. Not because of the money or the threat of divorce, but because I don't want to lose you. I don't want to be my father. I looked at this man I'd married 14 years ago. Saw the gray starting at his temples, the lines around his eyes, the genuine fear that he'd ruined everything. Then don't be, I said simply. Be better. I'm trying. I'm really trying. I know. And I did know. I'd seen him researching marriage books. Watched him actually play with the kids instead of just being in the same room with them. Noticed that he'd started asking if I needed anything when he went to the store. Small things. But small things added up. That night after the kids were in bed, Trevor and I sat on the couch together, no rental fee, no itemized seating arrangement. Just two people trying to figure out if they could rebuild what had been broken. Can I ask you something? He said. Sure. When you agreed to separate finances that first day, you already knew what you were going to do, didn't you? I smiled. Grandma Rose used to say, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. But also make sure you show them who you are right back. You showed me, all right. Did you learn anything? He was quiet for a moment. Then, I learned that fair doesn't mean equal. I learned that I'd been taking advantage of you for years without even realizing it. I learned that my wife is a lot smarter and stronger than I gave her credit for. And I learned that I almost lost the best thing in my life because I was too stupid to see what I had. It wasn't poetry. It wasn't a grand romantic gesture. But it was honest. And for now, that was enough. 6 months after the invoice incident, Susan hosted Thanksgiving at her house. It was the first time in years that Trevor's whole family had gathered, including Robert, who showed up with a surprisingly thoughtful bottle of wine and an apology to me for not raising my son better. Over turkey and stuffing, Susan raised her glass. I want to make a toast, she said. To my daughter-in-law, who taught my son what partnership really means. And to all the women who've had to itemize their worth before people would recognize it. Hear, hear, Robert added, surprising everyone. Trevor reached for my hand under the table. I let him take it. Emma watched us with the calculating eye of a 12-year-old who'd learned that relationships were complicated but worth fighting for. Jake just wanted more mashed potatoes. Later, after dinner, Susan pulled me aside. I have something for you, she said, handing me an envelope. Inside was a check. For $60,000. Susan, I can't. It's Robert's. I asked him to reimburse you for the money you spent on Trevor's MBA. He agreed. Said it was the least he could do. But why? Because you shouldn't have to pay for my son to learn to be a decent husband. That's on us. She hugged me tight. Thank you for not giving up on him. But more importantly, thank you for not giving up on yourself. I drove home that night with Trevor, the kids asleep in the back seat, and thought about the last 6 months. About invoices and itemized expenses and the price of partnership. Grandma Rose had left me more than money. She'd left me the tools to value myself. To demand respect. To understand that love without equity wasn't really love at all. The inheritance money sat in our joint account, but I'd opened a separate investment account in my name only. Just in case. Because protecting yourself and trusting someone weren't mutually exclusive. I'd gone back to full-time teaching. Had even interviewed for that department head position that had just opened up again. Trevor had rearranged his schedule to handle afternoon pickup twice a week. Were we fixed? No. Marriage wasn't something you fixed like a broken appliance. It was something you rebuilt, brick by brick, choice by choice. But we were trying. Really trying.
They say just forget. Move on like it's easy. But forgetting you feels like remembering someone I've never seen. I've been trying to erase you from the places in my mind. But the harder that I fight it, the more you're hard to leave behind. Every memory keeps slipping through the cracks I try to close. like a face I should remember, but somehow never know. Forgetting you feels impossible, like chasing something I can't hold, like trying to remember someone that I've never even known. I keep reaching through the silence for a past I can't undo, 'cause letting go of what we had feels like losing something true. Every moment turns to fragments, every thought just fades to blue, like I'm searching for a feeling that still only leads to you. Forgetting you feels impossible, like chasing something I can't hold, like trying to remember someone that I've never even known. I keep reaching through the silence for a past I can't undo, 'cause letting go of what we had feels like losing something true. If I never met you, maybe I would know just how to heal, but now every empty moment still reminds me what is real. Forgetting you feels impossible, like chasing something I can't hold, like trying to remember someone that I've never even known. I keep reaching through the silence for a past I can't undo, 'cause letting go of what we had feels like losing something true. Don't pity me. My heart doesn't need your mercy. I can still stand on my own. I was broken by your leaving, fell deeper than I thought I would, but pain has taught me how to heal now and survive what once I couldn't. You don't have to look back sadly, don't reach out with guilty hands. What you shattered made me stronger, now I rise where I once collapsed. My heart doesn't need your pity, not another empty sign. I've got enough strength left within me to rebuild this life of mine. My feet are steady through the sorrow, I can stand through all the pain. You don't have to save me, darling, I'll learn to breathe again. I once begged for your affection, now I've learned my worth in scars. And the man you left in pieces found his own way through the dark. My heart doesn't need your pity, not another empty sign. I've got enough strength left within me to rebuild this life of mine. My feet are steady through the sorrow, I can stand through all the pain. You don't have to save me, darling, I'll learn to breathe again. So keep your sympathy behind you, I don't need what's left begun. My heart doesn't need your pity, not another empty sign. I've got enough strength left within me to rebuild this life of mine. My feet are steady through the sorrow. I can stand through all the pain. You don't have to save me, darling. I'll rise alone again. I'll rise alone